Hello, I'm Helgast, and I'm one of the 4 users of this YouTube channel. The other users are IDK51, who posts For Honor clips, but we also have Asho Katano, who's still planning his first video. Finally but not least, we have Ash, who I pray to God he hasn't found out we made this. We are 4 friends on PlayStation that decided we wanted to cover some of the games that we are currently playing. However, upon going through my library of games, I noticed I have a problem. I keep buying games! This has created a rather extensive backlog. I have a tendency to start a game and drop it due to getting distracted with new games. Being a part of this channel creates a great opportunity to make a dent in my backlog. So I made a list of the games, and if you're curious, there's a link in the description below to the backlog. I picked a random number, which is 88, Slime Sand. Slime Sand was created by Fabraz, an indie game company, and they released it on Steam in 2017. It took a year for the game to come out on PlayStation, where it was released as Slime Sand Super Slime Edition. This edition costs $14.99, but it comes with all the DLC, making the game have 4 campaigns to go through. The Super Slime Edition is amazing value, especially if you're into tough-as-nails platformers. So did this affect my decision to buy the game? Well, no, not at all, as I didn't even know this game existed. I only found out about this through PlayStation Now, as PlayStation Now is where many additional games come from the backlog. For those that don't know what PlayStation Now is, it's Sony's version of the Xbox Game Pass. However, if you hear one more person say, "Use Game Pass, it's better value," I will fucking scream, because if I had a PC or an Xbox, I would be using it, but I don't! Besides, having PlayStation Now for a year, I'm happy with the service so far. With that tangent out of the way, why is Slime Sand on the backlog? Well, 2D platformers don't tend to be a genre of game I enjoy a lot, especially when the game wants to be hard for the sake of being hard. The only other game that sort of feels the same is something like Super Meat Boy, and games where I make one mistake and have to start over aren't my thing. But the game's art style and charm has caught my attention, so I decided I wanted to play it. Now, unlike the Project Nimbus video, this will be a spoiler review due to the structure of the game. I simply don't know how to cover it without spoiling things. Now, due to the style of Slime Sand, we aren't covering the game on a level-to-level basis, since this would leave a lot to be desired for a review, as there are 100 levels for the first campaign alone. If I covered them on a level-to-level basis, my input would be a singular sentence long, and that would be tragic. I mean, imagine trying to cover your life in a single sentence on your grave. This means we'll be covering the game on a world-to-world basis, with this being the first world that comes with the game's easier levels since the game wants us to be acquainted with our moves. Slime Sand's moves comes with a singular jump and a one-time dash, both of which get replenished when landing on any surface. This allows for some fast-paced platforming. Well, it would allow for fast-paced platforming if I was actually good at this game! But it's fine, as the game does have an ace up its sleeve to make people like me, who are platformer disabled, feel like we can walk with the normal folk. This ace is the morph mechanic, which makes the game go into slow motion, which is a godsend. But does it have a downside? Well, sort of. While this slows down the game world, it keeps the on-screen timer moving at normal speed. This makes it so getting certain achievements and trophies are not possible, but who cares about that? I'm definitely not a completionist in any game that I play. I mean, I have all but one trophy to Platinum Rainbow Six Siege. But why would I get 5 flawless rank rounds in Siege? I mean, I'm a sane person after all. So as you can see, not caring about the achievements means that there's not a single downside for me. This means I still struggled with the easy mode turned on, but the controls are responsive and feel pretty good, and having a slow mode does help with the platforming. So, what are the obstacles? Well, metaphoric voice, that's a great question, as the game does have some basic ground rules, as anything that is white is safe and we can freely move around on. Green is also safe as we can move and jump on it, but we can also press L2 and go through the green section, which creates an entirely new challenges to the platforming in general. Finally, we get to the red objects that kill the player. Now if that sounds too easy, don't worry, as the game comes with an element of changing stuff around, as the game likes to change the mechanics, turning green things into red obstacles or vice versa. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry, I have an example for you. So we are introduced to red saw blades that move around and kill the player if they touch it. Well, by level 8, we are introduced to rotation and green saw blades. This makes it so that we now bounce on the green saw blades and it's used to create some fun challenges. This is fine and all, but it does lead into a problem I have. As new mechanics are added to the game, it will get a level dedicated to the mechanic. It allows for the player to get used to the mechanic, but the game has this habit of making those levels harder than the rest for some reason. I mean, we see the rotations have some simple things, but how does the level escalate into this? Like, what the hell is this? Well, all the mechanic-based levels really have a tendency of being harder than the normal levels, but the difficulty spikes will happen on a random spot, which makes them unpredictable for when they strike. Since this game is filled to the brim with mechanics, I won't be going through all of them. This also keeps some surprises to those that decide to look into the game. This means we'll move on to the next logical thing, which is talking about the boss of this world. We are fighting a weird penis monster, but I'm pretty sure this boss takes place in the stomach. I think? I mean, I don't know, I'm not a dentist. To kill the boss, we have to go in a small box that the boss has for some reason and stand in it until, oh shit, he turned red. We didn't have to come out of the boss where it will bring out turrets that fire at us. This is the main gimmick to the boss, as it will continuously change the arena to make it harder. We have to do this about 5 times, but we don't have all day, so... This boss was a great end to the first world, as it's a simple but fun boss to fight, but with the stomach down, we are moving to World 2. World 2, the first thing that we can notice is that the music has changed from the last world. This is slightly disappointing to me, as I wish for some more variety in the music, or at least a change in the music halfway through the world. The music's good, but hearing the same tune for 20 levels can be a bit disappointing, but not ear-grating. Now this world is great as they're still adding new mechanics to really change the elements of the game. We are introduced to 2 mechanics used frequently. These are the keys and morph change blocks, and I'll talk about them individually. So let's start with the keys, as they bring out a puzzle element to the levels. The mechanic is rather simple as the keys are in these boxes on the level. They also follow the same rules as everything else, so green is good, red bad. Most of the time they put these in fun areas and expand the mechanic with little things. For example, in the introductory level, has us guiding a worm across gaps. Well, we have to get the right keys. If we go in the wrong order, it will cause for the worm to fall. Which of course makes me wonder, do I have doors inside of me? The next mechanic is the morph change block. This gives the morph mechanic a little more depth. As you can see, the blocks have a changed look to them. That's because morphing causes for the block in the dotted line space to move to a different spot. Letting go of the morph will make the block change spots again. This creates a fun and unique feeling of going from slow motion into fast motion constantly to progress in the level. This is a welcoming mechanic, to an extent, as this is the game's most used mechanic, which will be seen through this world and the upcoming world. Well, I know I just explained how it worked, but some sort of tutorial here or a sign would have been great as I got stuck here for a while. This is due to me looking at this and believing it was a timed section for some reason. It took me longer than I want to admit before it sunk into my monkey brain that I was controlling it with the morph mechanic. But after getting used to it, things quickly got harder. Here is where my enjoyment of the game started to disappear, as this is the first level where I took the bitch route and decided to skip the level. And to do this, we have to go to Slump Town. Welcome to Slump Town, because when being eaten by a worm, instead of escaping, I too would think, hell yeah, this would make a great home! Well, by looking at this place, it's more of a city rather than a town, but here we meet the shopkeepers who are selling items unique to them. Now I know what you're thinking. What is the currency we are using? Well, luckily for you, the answer is apples, which are scattered around the levels. Now to the shopkeepers. We have Fernando, who sells pills which can change the moves of Slime Sand. For example, we can get an additional jump but lose the dash. This brings out a good variety, which can help with the different playstyles that one may have. But I like the standard slime moveset, damn it! Next we have Wormy on our shop of arts. These are used for the borders of the screen. I know what any reasonable person would do. I bought them all, only to change the border once. I still see it as a great purchase. Then we come across a spider who sells clothes, which I ignored. So we finally come to Jars the Frog, who's selling level skips for the low price of a singular apple. I go to purchase and the game warns me that I won't be able to 100% the game, but I don't care. So this may seem like it's another slow-mo thing of there's no drawback for skipping levels. Well, besides for the completionist element. But there is, as the price of the level skips keeps going up every time you skip a level, which isn't a problem for now. For this world, I only skipped 2 levels, as many of the other mechanics and levels were doable and pretty fun. However, we get to level 36, where the game's worst mechanic kicks in. This mechanic is a gravity change. This comes from going through this dotted line. This will flip the gravity, which can be disorienting, and you can have your slime go through only to get stuck in the gravity changes. I absolutely despise this level, and there isn't anything that someone can do to change my mind. I hated it so much that I flat out skipped this level due to how bad it felt to me. That's the last mechanic of this world that we'll talk about, is we're going to go into the boss of World 2. As the game map shows, we're clearly in the middle of the worm, but we managed to get to the brain of the worms, and without asking any questions, we fight a pissed off brain. The fight is rather simple, as it starts with the brain firing electricity that we have to avoid. After that, the brain sends them. Oh God! Don't panic, as all we need to do is jump on them to get to this box, where it fires a projectile at the brain. Afterwards, it becomes a scrolling section that we have to go through at a decent pace while stomach acid chases us. When catching up, we have to do the same thing 2 more times, and then we defeat the Megamind, which brings us to World 3. Welcome to World 3, where it wins the contest for being the most annoying world. With this, you might be able to tell, I skipped more levels, and that's true. As in World 2, I skipped 2 levels, while in this world, I skipped a total of 6 levels. So what has caused me to skip this many levels? Well, a lot of levels had some tight platforming, and some sections that I couldn't get past, like these barrels. But what really pushes the levels into being annoying are 2 mechanics, missiles and bomb men. The missiles are a rather simple mechanic, as these turrets will fire a single red missile at the player. The missile will track the player, and for some reason, they can go through green walls. These missiles have a good amount of range and tracking, and what really makes the mechanic such a bastard is their placement. As they are placed in some great spots, these spots cause the platforming to get really tight and really hard. This mechanic also comes with a green variant where you have to use the missile to get up to a certain spot to continue. The last mechanic is the dumb bomb enemies. I mean, look at them! That's the face of nightmares! These enemies will hang out and wait for the player to get within their range. Once in range, they'll chase after the player. Once close, they'll explode. Their explosion leaves a death sphere that will expand a bit, and it will linger there for a few seconds. Doesn't sound too bad, but this enemy kills all the momentum that the level had, especially with the explosion, and it really feels like the pacing to a level gets all messed up due to these enemies. Or, and I'm willing to say this, I'm just bad at dealing with an enemy type like this. But instead of sitting around being a negative Nancy, I will talk about something great the game has, which are the visuals. While I could simply boil down the graphics to a simple pixel art indie game, Slime Sand does something pretty unique, as they stick with a 3-color palette, which overall does look nice throughout the game. All the environments look nice. But my favorite element to the graphics is the NPC and creature design, as everything has this rather cute look to it. But if I had to pick my favorite out of the bunch, it would be this fat snail looking dude. He's just adorable and I can bounce on it. I mean, when's the last time you saw something cute and bouncy? I mean, you could try to bounce on a kitten or puppy, but from what I hear, they won't be cute afterwards. So let's finish this world off by destroying the heart, which also happens to be the boss. Now I don't know how or where the blood's being pumped to after we destroyed the brain, but it reflects in the boss design as the heart can't think, so it relies on punching us. So we trick it to punch itself. but I couldn't get past the second hit as the timing to the boss was weird, and frankly, I had enough of Slime Sand. So I did the reasonable thing and skipped the boss because you can do that for some reason. But hey, a victory is a victory, so we move on to World 4. So World 3 is where I decided to stop playing Slime Sand, as I was simply not having fun with the game. While I did have intentions of beating the game, I found myself not wanting to complete it due to just not enjoying it. If I did beat it, all this review would be is me being negative to a good game, and that's simply not worth going through. So I'm admitting defeat. While I can see why people like this, it's simply just not for me. With that, I can safely cross Slime Sand off the backlog. This is a good game, especially if someone likes the tough as nails style of platformers. But for me, I personally would have loved for the game to be a bit slower, especially when adding in mechanics, as the mechanics that do get remixed are a lot of fun, like the floating water level. It's a blast! But I don't think it would fit the style of Slime Sand. But if this game does sound like it'd be up your alley, I highly recommend the Super Slime Edition, as it comes with so much content. With another game off the list, I need to get started on the next one, as the list just keeps growing. When will it stop?